Picture this, Europe, 1914. A continent on the brink of a war that's going to tear the world apart. Millions will die. But what if I told you that this global catastrophe, this clash of massive empires, was, at its heart, a family argument? Yeah, you heard that right.
I know. It sounds crazy, right? A family squabble leading to a world war, but you're about to see just how tangled up the lines of royalty and the lines of battle really were. It's a story that's almost too bizarre to believe. All right, so let's dive right into it. A royal family feud. How in the world did a bunch of cousins manage to split an entire continent in two? Well, it all starts with one person, the woman at the center of this huge, tangled web, Queen Victoria. People called her the grandmother of Europe, and for good reason. See, back then, royals only married other royals. And Victoria, well, she played matchmaker on a continental scale. Her kids and grandkids ended up in pretty much every major royal house out there, creating this massive, single European royal family. And get this, on one side you've got King George V of the UK and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. And on the other, their first cousin, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany. I mean, these guys were all first cousins. They grew up together, probably played together as kids, but this family reunion was about to get seriously out of hand. Because when it comes down to it, especially in the world of empires, blood is not always thicker than water. Ambition? Well, that's another story. Kaiser Wilhelm, he was ambitious, maybe a little reckless, and he started building up a massive navy. His goal? To challenge Britain's long-held control of the seas. And just like that, family loyalties started to look pretty flimsy next to imperial power. So to push back against his cousin, the British king had to get creative and find some new friends, even if that meant shaking hands with a very old enemy.
Okay, next up, forging the iron alliances. This is where all that family drama starts getting serious, turning into hard and fast military pacts. It's a story of diplomatic warfare, and it's pretty incredible. So for hundreds of years, Britain had this cool foreign policy strategy. They'd called themselves the Continental Balancer. Basically, they would always side with the second strongest country in Europe to make sure no single nation got too powerful and started bossing everyone around. But now, Germany was surging, becoming the new number one. So what do? You've got to find a new number two to back. And for Britain, that meant cozying up to their oldest, most bitter rival, France. And man, things changed fast. It all kicked off in 1903. King Edward VII goes to Paris. Now, you gotta remember, the British and French had been at each other's throats for centuries. So the Parisian public, they were not happy to see him. They were literally insulting him in the streets. But Edward, he was smooth. He had this incredible diplomatic touch. His charm offensive totally worked. A year later, boom, Britain and France signed the Entente Cordiale. And just a few years after that, Russia hops on board. And suddenly you've got the Triple Entente. The battle lines were drawn. So by this point, Europe is basically a giant warehouse packed to the ceiling with dynamite. You've got these two huge, heavily armed alliances just staring each other down, waiting. All it's going to take is one tiny spark. And the story of that spark, well, it's so full of bizarre mistakes and twists of fate, it's almost like a dark comedy. Which brings us to the impossible assassination. Yeah, the event that lit the fuse on this whole thing wasn't some masterfully planned operation. Nope. It was a comedy of errors, a story of unbelievable blunders, and just pure dumb luck. So the date is June 28th, 1914. We're in Sarajevo. The heir to the massive Austro-Hungarian Empire, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, is in town. Now, this visit was a huge deal, and honestly, a deliberate provocation. It was a show of force, basically telling Serbian nationalists, this land is ours, back off. Okay, you can't make this stuff up. The assassination attempt starts, and it's a total flop. The first guy throws a bomb, and it literally bounces off the Archduke's car and blows up under the next one. The Archduke is fine, but he is furious. So what does he do? In this crazy show of courage, or maybe just pride, he insists they keep going with the tour. But then, the driver, probably flustered, makes a wrong turn. He tries to back the car up, and the engine stalls, and you will not believe where it stalls. Right in front of a little cafe where the second assassin, Gavrilo Princip, had gone to grab a sandwich, thinking the whole thing was a bust. I mean, can you imagine? Princip just looks up from his lunch, and there's his target, sitting there, completely stuck. He steps out, fires 2 shots, and changes the world. But the story's not over.
Princip then tries to kill himself. First, his pistol jams, then he bites down on a cyanide pill, but it's old and just makes him throw up. So then he jumps into a river to drown, but the river is only ankle deep. It's like a scene from a tragic, terrible slapstick movie. It's just such a crazy series of mistakes. So I gotta ask you, what do you think was the single biggest blunder? Was it the Archduke insisting on continuing the tour? The driver making that one wrong turn? The whole course of history changed in that one moment. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your take. All right, let's talk about the fallout, the dominoes of war. Because that one gunshot in Sarajevo, it set off a chain reaction that nobody could stop. It was like watching the lights go out one by one all across the continent. And to really get why Austria-Hungary reacted so fiercely, you have to look at their leader, the 84-year-old Emperor Franz Joseph. I mean, this guy had been through so much tragedy. His wife was assassinated, his only son committed suicide, and now the nephew who was supposed to be his new heir, murdered. He was heartbroken, he was furious, and his German allies were whispering in his ear. He was ready to fight. And just look how fast it all happened. It was a terrifying cascade. July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. So Russia, which sees itself as Serbia's big brother, starts getting its army ready. Germany sees that as a threat, and because they're allied with Austria-Hungary, on August 1st, they declare war on Russia. 2 days later, they declare war on Russia's ally, France. In less than a week, the whole continent was on fire because of this web of alliances. So what about Britain? They were still on the fence. But then Germany made its move. Their war plan involved smashing through neutral Belgium to get to France. And here's the kicker, bringing it all back to family again. The King of Belgium was King George V's uncle. Invading his uncle's country, that was the last straw for Britain. And just like that, the family feud had officially become a world war. And so we come to the final chapter of this story, an era in ashes. This wasn't just another war. This was the end of an entire world, the end of what we think of as classical Europe. And nobody, truly nobody, saw the absolute horror that was coming. You know, when the soldiers marched off, people lined the streets, cheering, throwing flowers. The Kaiser himself told his troops, "You will be home before the leaves have fallen from the trees." Everyone thought it would be over by Christmas, a quick, glorious little war. They had no idea, absolutely no idea they were marching into 4 years of industrialized slaughter. The cost was just unimaginable. When the dust finally settled, 4 massive, ancient empires were just gone. The German, the Russian, the Austro-Hungarian, and the Ottoman empires, all of them turned to dust. The world they had known was gone. Forever. So in the end, that gunshot in Sarajevo, it killed so much more than an archduke. It killed an entire world order. The whole system of empires and kings and family ties, it was all shattered. That single shot was the death knell for an entire age. And that's the question that just hangs over all of this, isn't it? We can talk about alliances and ambitions and all the big geopolitical forces, but it all comes back to that one moment. One man's life taken by chance on a street corner in Sarajevo. Was his life worth the end of a world? Hey, if you found this deep dive into how it all started insightful, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe because we have a lot more history to uncover. The gunshot in Sarajevo may have been the spark, but the fire is just getting started. Next time, we're going into the trenches. See you then.